Hi, my name is Rene. Yes, English is not my native language. I have a heavy accent and I will probably make a lot of mistakes, but I hope you can understand what actually was like spinning my head during a night of insomnia. And why am I speaking in English? And I hope I can make it clear too. The thing is, I am Brazilian. I live in Brazil. Sweet, right? Brazil, sensuality, joy. But we must always remember, for those of you who don't know enough of the Brazilian fauna, that one of the most extraordinary animals in our jungles is a big snake, kind of a python. I don't know what the name in English would be. It's called the jiboia. Jiboia is a huge snake, a huge one. It's not a poisonous one. It kills you by constriction. It hugs you very slowly, and then you cannot breathe anymore, and then it breaks your bones, and then it swallows you whole very slowly, and then starts digesting you, or a cow, or a horse, or some kind of big animal, for like days. And jiboias for me are kind of a symbol for some of the most perverse traits of the Brazilian culture, which is, how can I say that? It's kind of a black hole that sucks you in. You cannot fly. It sucks you in, and it's almost impossible to escape. If you have seen some interesting manifestations such as bossa nova, or I don't know, Brazilian art or something, these are exceptions that escaped pretty much as the Hawking radiation allows some particles to escape for a miracle from the attraction of a black hole. But the Brazilian culture is kind of unbreathable. It kind of sucks you in. It kind of, you cannot fly. Okay, I'm digressing here. So that's why I'm trying to speak in English, because trying to speak something that is not consensual, that is not part of what is agreed to be spoken, or not the way it should be spoken, or not to the. Anyway, it's kind of a Brazilian scene. We tend to pretend, we tend to make believe, we tend to make sure that everything is perfect. Oh, eat one more pão de queijo, one more feijoada, eat yourself to death, and drink some more cachaça, and come back to bed and make some hot sex again, and it sucks you in. So it's not exactly a culture that is very positive or very nice for thinking out of the box. Forget about it. It's all about being equal and not being different, and not creating too many waves or ripples. But again, talking about my insomnia, I kind of connected some dots last night, especially when it comes to what is happening right now in the digital sphere. I remember a few years ago, I used to be quite an enthusiast about the quite of an enlightenment enthusiasm, a romantic libertarian view that digital technologies would somehow set us free, right? Would somehow bring us to a new, different level. But this is not what's happening. So I think I understand my mistake, and maybe some mistakes that are current today, especially for people who are theorizing about networks and about social whatever. And I will go back to a book. I think it is a book by a guy called Sean Carroll. It's called The Big Picture. And it's about the history of science. And he says that in the history of science, there is a pattern. The first thing is, okay, you have magical thinking. Then you realize that things are okay, there are atoms, individual particles. Oh, that explains everything. Everything is made of particles. So you try to understand how particles work. And that's very powerful. Then you realize that Actually, there is more to it, because those particles, they combine and they relate to each other, and then you realize that the relation between things is also important. It's not only about individuals, it's not about particles, it's also about how they relate. And then at some point you realize that there is more to it, because these relationships also something new emerge, complexity emerges. You realize that it's not only these individual relationships between two forces, but also there is a whole complexity. Everything is involved, everything is connected. So this is a pattern, not only in physics, in chemistry, in psychology, in sociology, blah, blah, blah. I like the idea, especially because I think most of the thinking about digital in the very beginning, and even today, when you hear that Singularity University and blah blah blah, now we have bits, and if we have bits, bits explain everything, because they are not material anymore, so things are getting dematerialized. So it doesn't matter where they are, no geography anymore, no culture anymore, because everything is becoming bits. And bits have no weight. They are free. So there is this atomic perception of the digital world. So at some point, especially when social networks become, evident, you cannot deny how powerful they are. People realize that, networks. So maybe the magic or the power of the digital era comes from the networks. So there is a whole science and evangelists and cults about networks, the power of networks, and networks are going to save us or bring us to a different level, because network is, the center is in nowhere and the circle is everywhere. You remember those kinds of puzzles? So the whole notion that everything is distributed in a network which is indifferent, and so a kind of a new freedom, a new level of autonomy and everything, I think it doesn't take into account a very slow and subtle effect that takes time to reveal itself. It's pretty much like dark matter. It's pretty much like a black hole. It's pretty much like gravity. It's gravity. If we think about how the solar system is structured, how planets and everything, it's all about gravity. Gravity sucks you in, and gravity creates stars. Once you have enough density, once you have enough pressure, and after a long time, stars ignite. So I think what happened in the digital world is that all those bits and bytes that are spinning around, no weight, completely free, in networks that are completely anonymous and decentralized and everything, a few companies devised ways to, through a special kind of gravity, suck this data, these bits and bytes in, suck them, and begin to create really black holes of information. And that's what's happening with Google, that's what happened with Facebook, that's what happened with Amazon. They created such massive concentrations of information. And there is another topic. It's not only about concentrating information, because information could be gathered and stored before. I worked for Yahoo, and I remember when in Yahoo we realized that we had data about 500 million people, but we had never prepared for treating that data as a valuable asset. So we had empty data, so that no worth. Google was way smarter than us. But it is not only the collection of data. There is something new that transcends and subverts the whole fascination about the power of networks. And for me, it is the power of algorithms, artificial intelligence. So these companies are not only gathering tons of information, but they are able now, because something new emerged, pretty much like conscience emerged in the biological world, they are able to connect the dots, those bits and bytes that were like loose and didn't have a name, didn't have that label sticker to it. Now they can identify patterns, and they can identify you, your life, your future, your past, whatever, from these very faint traces of activity that you're living everywhere. So it's kind of funny because we started believing that these bits and bytes would somehow dematerialize life and would bring us to a new age of freedom and lightness. Why not? But what we are seeing right now, it's the opposite of that. So we are like solar systems spinning around very massive suns, and these companies are able to this is superhuman. This is something really beyond what we could conceive. They are actually going way beyond our mental and brain capabilities. They can infer from this huge amount of loose data, almost plasma. Our data is pretty much like plasma, but these companies, these AIs, they are able to reconstruct and to make all these atoms and particles, this dust that we are leaving behind, and making coherent pictures, not only pictures, movies, stories, based on that. So this is something that is the opposite of the whole idea of dematerializing, of, I don't know, of freedom, of autonomy, of exuberance, of innovation. No, it's not. The gravity is sucking everything and creating new kinds of structures, new kinds of phenomena. Pretty much like a fusion within a star is only possible through gravity. It didn't exist in the very beginning. It took a while. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of attraction in spinning around, and the right pressure, the right conditions and everything. But what we have right now, I think we should reconsider everything that we teach and say about the power of technology, digital technologies, networks, bits and bytes, because this is already past, this is already gone. Okay, we had a big bang, then we had a rapid expansion, but what we are seeing right now is the sky is getting darker and darker, with fewer and fewer stars that are massive, and so everything is concentrating, and everything is like it's funny. You have those black holes sucking everything in and putting into question what the future of this wonderful expansion will be. Will this expansion stop? Will it shrink back to a kind of a singularity? But again, okay, that was the result of a long night of insomnia. I was connecting so many dots, and now I just realized that these big companies, they are pretty much like the jiboias here in Brazil. They hug you very slowly. There is no escape, and they will dissolve you and digest you. And it's getting more and more complicated to fly and to escape. So that's it. I hope it made any sense. Sorry for speaking in my broken English. I promise maybe tomorrow after a good night's sleep I will come up with something that is clearer and makes more sense. So thank you for your attention. René de Paulo speaking from São Paulo, Brazil, in the traffic. Bye bye.